Hey everybody out there in YouTube land, it's Rob the History Smith back with another video for you today. This one I'm going to be looking at something a little bit different, as promised, to kind of broaden the interest out there. I have a helmet. You guys might recognize that one briefly from the video I did with Mini Goose. He was wearing this as his protection against ricochets from the BBs. So let's get into the details of this, and maybe I'll try it on at the end of the video, see if it fits my giant head. Alright, so as you can see, we're looking at the helmet here from the side. But before I go into too much detail about this guy here, I want to talk about the 408. The 408 was a bomber group developed in 1941 in Yorkshire, England, my homeland. And obviously the nickname of the squadron would have been the Goose. They were adopted in Kingsville, Ontario, so basically they were formed in England, and then as their home base they were adopted by Kingsville. Doesn't mean they were stationed there, it just means it's kind of like the way you name a battleship after a country, or not after a country, after a state. It's the same kind of thing with squadrons. You would have your home base, your home group supporting you. Alright, so let's get into the details of these guys. So they basically flew Hamptons, Halifaxes, and Lancasters. I'll show you a picture of those. The Hampton's a kind of a funny looking airplane. It's a very early long distance bomber. Its capabilities were good for its when it was created, but I think most people would argue they were borderline obsolete by the outbreak of World War II. Hence 1941 adoption. Before you guys in the States were even in the war, we were flying those as part of the RAF and RCAF, Royal Canadian Air Force. The other aircraft was a much better aircraft. If you look at it, it resembles a B-25 a little bit, but it's much larger. It's a 4-engine aircraft, a bomber as well. They're kind of interesting. They have a lot of wood in them still. They're kind of that crossover period between what we consider a modern aircraft and somebody's horn is going off. Alright, it's not my car because it went off. Alright guys, so back to that. So the Halifax is a much more capable bomber, but of course they got the ultimate British Canadian bomber, which is the Lancasters, near the end of their term, and they actually flew those all the way up to 1964. Those were replaced by other aircraft, primarily the C-47, the DC-3, the classic aircraft we all kind of know and love for delivering cargo. And also shows a shift in their purpose as a group. But going back to World War II, so they destroyed 11 aircraft, damaged 6, dropped 11,430 tons of bombs during World War II operations. They were being geared up to go to the Pacific, but of course, as we know, the Pacific War ended rather abruptly with a couple bombs being dropped. And we know which bombs those were, weren't we? Don't we? All right. So the sacrifice, I mean, victories are great, but the sacrifice tells you, I think, more about a unit than its victories. Victories, I mean, they're what win wars, but I think in the same respect, casualties are the cost of war. So they lost 146 aircraft, 897 crew members were they were killed or injured. 877 were killed, 3 went missing as a POW, and 17 were wounded, and 3 evaded capture. All right. Non-operational, so during training they lost 12 aircraft, 32 personnel killed, 7 injured, which actually I would say is probably quite good. Training, as most people know, is probably the most locally place you're going to get killed in the military. It's just a fact of it's a dangerous job and it's a lot of dangerous activities. But going back to the helmet down here, we're almost there, guys. We're almost there. So this, I'll talk a little bit about this to start with. So this is a helicopter helmet. You guys might recognize it. Looks very similar to what you saw in Vietnam. You can actually have a date on there, 1989, so it tells you exactly December 8th, 1989. Obviously, 89 is past the point of Vietnam, So what were these guys up to? So they were disbanded in 1970 as a bomber group or a transport group, and they were reestablished in 1971 in Edmonton, Alberta as the 408 Tactical Helicopter Squadron. Their primary goal then was to deliver equipment and supplies to troops, right? It's kind of says what it is. It's a tactical helicopter squadron. But they would deliver the supplies inside of war zones. It's not like Coast Guard or something like that where they would... It's not a disaster response. They were there in war zones. They flew the CH-136 Kiowa. It looks pretty much identical with exception... There's quite a few exceptions, but it looks very close to the... not the Chinooks, the Bell UH-1s we saw in Vietnam. I'll obviously show you guys some pictures here. So a lot of training took place in Canada, and you would say, well, 1989, yes, we know the Gulf War, first Gulf War started off. I don't know, these guys weren't there in the Gulf War, but they were in somewhere, I would argue probably even worse. They ended up flying in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And the Bosnia-Herzegovina War, I think, is one of those forgotten wars because it did happen alongside the Gulf War, so it was kind of overshadowed. But the Bosnia-Herzegovina was a country. You had the Bosnians, the Herzegovinians, and then you have Serbians. And basically, anytime you get ethnic groups like that grouped together, there's going to be conflict. And unfortunately, it erupted into all-out genocide on both sides. But of course, obviously, one side's going to be better at it than the other. And the Bosnians and the Serbs were considered the aggressor. Canada went in with peacekeeping forces as part of the UN. Eventually, they had to send in NATO, and NATO forced a resolution where they basically divided the country up to help segregate and keep things calm. It's a kind of a boring ending to a nasty war. I would say look it up. There's some good movies. One of the movies you can actually find is Behind Enemy Lines. Probably not an accurate movie, but at least it takes place in Bosnia during the war. So the 408, what were they doing, and why is this helmet important to me? So this helmet is important to me because, like I was saying, it's a forgotten war, and the 408 were there as part of the UN troops, United Nations peacekeeping force. And these guys, they were there just to, like I said, tactical, to supply materials and stuff like that to help support the war or support the peacekeeping effort. And the 408 was unfortunately drawn into much, much greater combat than was ever intended for them. They ended up flying hot missions to extract troops and deliver troops to certain parts of Bosnia to repel and stop the genocides that was going on. And war, is very sanitized a lot of times. And if you look up this one, there are some horrible photographs, which I can't show, of what was happening to the civilian population. And it is right up there with what was going on in World War II. And arguably probably even worse than what's going on in Israel right now, because this was very much a one-on-one kind of battle that was going on with the ethnic cleansing. So they weren't just simply bombing them out of existence. They were going in with clubs and the butts of their rifles and killing people. It was really quite nasty. So that's enough about the 408. They're still active, and they're still flying essentially combat missions around the world as we speak. But let's have a look at the helmet. So this helmet here, it's essentially the same. You might be able to read it in there. It's a Gentex Corporation. It's made in the USA. And it's virtually identical to the helmets you see in movies from Vietnam with the Americans flying, except for the big difference is the floppy sides here. In the US issued Vietnam ones, these would have been cast as part of the helmet to be solid. I think I don't know. I don't know what would be better, honestly. I think this one's probably easier to get on and off because of this flappiness. So this area here would hold your headphones. so you'll be able to hear and communicate inside the helicopter. And as you can see, there's a bunch of buttons for adjusting your straps. And you got another one on the back here for adjusting. This one actually has the soldier's name. I'm hoping maybe I can look up this guy and find out where he's at. I don't really know how this helmet got onto the market. I just got it from one of my friends who owned an antique store. So we're saying here you have your Canadian inspection sticker. This is December 8th, 1989. So like I was saying, it's kind of a interesting time in history that is so modern that we take it for granted. So you got reflective tape added to it. I don't know if they were all done that same way or if it was the individual sergeant who did it up. This is a hand-painted symbol. This is not a sticker. This is all hand-painted, which is kind of cool. The emblem's a little bit different than the ones they were using in World War II, but it's still recognizable as the 408. And of course, it's got the neat little... You have to press down that button, and then you can lower the face shield. It's clear. Not tinted. It's not a fighter helmet. It's actually in pretty good condition. Luckily, I have another one of these visors if anything were to happen to this. It's showing its age on the inside here, the foam lining. Then you have your other protective lining for your helmet, and then you have little mesh. And those things are held together with screws. I don't think this would be a very good modern helmet compared to the way we like to make things now. The idea of adding holes and stuff like that into helmets tends to weaken them, becomes a stress point during a crash. I actually know somebody who had a crash in an F4, and when his head hit the dash of the instrument panel, it split the helmet down the middle. I mean, granted to say he didn't walk away from that one. He was in the hospital for quite a while with a serious concussion. But so that's the helmet there. I thought you guys might want to have a look at it. And let's see if I can fit it on my fat head. All right, here we go. Will it fit my fat head? Oh, it actually fits my fat head, kind of. I don't know, I think my skull's probably tougher than this thing. Alright guys, hope you like this, so please click subscribe. I really need more subscribers. Hit like if you like it. Hit like if you don't like it. Just pretend you like it. No one will know the difference. And I'll remind you guys, I do have a giveaway ending at the end, or ending on October 1st, 2024. So check out some other videos for that. Just leave a comment, subscribe, and you're automatically entered. And good luck to anybody who tries. And thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.